The Mega Man timeline is the epitome of a wolf in sheep's clothing. Behind its friendly exterior is a dark and violent world where ambition is a catalyst for catastrophe. See, Thomas Light probably thought his dream of creating robots capable of thinking for themselves was noble and innovative. His genius would change the world for the better. Little did he know that his work would bring about an endless cycle of war, ultimately leading to the death of over 60% of the human population. And you don't even want to know how bad it was for the robots. But you know what? Light's not at fault here. At least he took safety measures. From the classic series all the way up until Zero, we've seen that the main culprits were the ones who threw caution to the wind while trying to fulfill their radical ideals. And you'd think that after witnessing the death of over half the planet, folks would learn to chill at attempting to change the world. But no. The virus that is ambition claimed yet another victim. Bam! Welcome back to my mini-series covering the history and lore of every single Mega Man. Last time we went into the dark legacy of Mega Man Zero, but today we're going 2 centuries into the future. Crisis has struck the world once more. It's up to a whole new set of heroes to change their fate by using the powers of warriors from the past to become Mega Men. And no, that wasn't some type of joke or pun. These guys are canonically called Mega Men. Folks, I am the Black Mastadonte, and this is the insane lore of Mega Man ZX. Before we continue though, this video has a sponsor, me. On my website, thedonchiverse.com, I just dropped my newest set of merch, the Kaizen collection. Kaizen is a Japanese term that means continuous improvement. It's not about being the best, but striving to be 1% better each day. Ever since I learned about it a couple of years ago, it quickly became the philosophy that I live by. I actually have it tattooed on my arm, you might have seen it on stream. So I wanted to bring that energy to my clothing line. And I truly believe this is my best design yet. It has meaning, and it gives these pieces that cyberpunk streetwear aesthetic that I've been wanting. Like, peep the back, bro. You can't tell me that's not fire. So if you want some drip that makes you feel like the freshest video game character alive, while providing some daily motivation, check out my store. Once again, it's thedonchiverse.com. The link is in the description. You can also use the code DONCHIZX to get 15% off your order. With that being said, thank you so much for being here. Don't forget to like and subscribe only if you're enjoying the content. And yeah, let's get on with the story. The Mega Man ZX series was developed by the same folks who brought us Mega Man Zero, Inti Creates. Now, unlike the previous series, ZX and ZX Advent don't have an official complete works book to give more details on development and the characters. Luckily, we have this Rockman Unity interview with the series' character designer and scenario writer, Makoto Yabe. Like me, the aesthetic of the games caught his attention. He used to play the classic Mega Man titles, and the stylized looks of Mega Man Zero and Mega Man Battle Network shook him to his creative core. He ended up joining Inti Creates in 2003 to work on Mega Man Zero 2's backgrounds. Later, in Zero 3, he got to lean into his expertise by working on that title scenario, under the supervision of Yoshinori Kawano, the director of the Zero series. Then, for the final game, he got to work on the scenario by himself. Once Inti Creates decided that Zero 4 would be the definitive end to the series, they chose to make the next game something new. One of the first ideas was to bring X and Zero into the future with the power of science, but there was nothing novel about that. Instead, they went with an idea proposed by Inti Creates CEO, Takuya Aizu. Have the story focus on protagonists who inherit the powers of past heroes. This led to the creation of ZX's 2 main characters, Vent and Ale. Yup, the team pulled a Pokemon and finally created a female protagonist for all the girls who wanted to play. Vent's design was inspired by X. Yabe thought about what a young version of him would be like in the classic Mega Man world. His hair was made to blow in the wind if a breeze were to hit him from the front, which perfectly matches his name since it's French for wind. Inversely, Ale's hair was designed to flutter if hit by wind from behind. Her name is French for wings. When it came to the story, Yabe didn't want the karma of the Zero series to drag on over here. Thus, the concept of biometals was created. These would be the items the protagonists used to harness the abilities of past heroes. Funny enough, they realized that this was already being done by the Mega Man Star Force series, though in a much different manner. In terms of the actual development process, tough would be putting it lightly. Understand that Yabe was a scenario writer and character designer. Nakayama only provided art for some promotional material and the cover, so Yabe had to adapt to the guy's extremely unique art style and design the characters from scratch. Along with that, his 2 roles practically made him the creative core of the team. Characters had to be designed before their sprites and animations could be made. Scenarios had to be written for the team to understand where everything fit into the game. And see, this would be a tiny bit bearable if the game was planned to launch on the Game Boy Advance, like Zero. But nah, it came out on the much more sophisticated dual-screened Nintendo DS. This gave them access to better hardware, meaning more work, especially for Yabe. One of the toughest features they implemented because of this new tech was voice acting. Since their schedule was all over the place, there were times when the graphics weren't done in time for the talent to record their lines, so Yabe would have to show them storyboards and concept art to give them an idea of what's going on. From there, they'd have to use their imagination to fill in the blanks. Additionally, the fact that the game was going to be fully voiced led them to deciding that biometals would also talk. They'd be like sidekicks to the heroes of the story. Yabe didn't originally plan for that, so he had to rewrite so much to make it work. By the way, ZX only got a Japanese dub, but I'm sure you can see why they didn't waste time with alternate dubs. Oh, and did I mention that Yabe also had to create promo art? Cause he did! So homie was worked to the bone, fam. In the interview, he said he barely remembers the 2 to 3 years it took to develop both this and ZX Advent. Yabe, whether or not you're watching this, I just want to thank you for working like a maniac on this series, cause my god. As for the title, the team had a bunch of names in mind, like Rockman XYZ and Rockman Zash. The latter was an idea because this series would lead into Rockman Dash, aka Mega Man Legends, but they settled with Mega Man ZX. It was released in 2006, and did aight. Many critics praise it for its biometal transformations and overall presentation. The majority of the complaints, however, were about the confusing map. It allowed for free roaming, which was cool, however, it could get pretty annoying running around trying to navigate the place. Regardless, it did well enough to garner a sequel, but we'll get into that later. It's time to talk lore. Let's hop back into this timeline and watch how ambition screws over the world once more. Alright, quick story speedrun to set the stage for you guys. 2000X, Dr. Albert Wily becomes a terrorist because he's sick of others looking down on his brilliant ideas. So his old colleague, Dr. Thomas Light, turns his creation and assistant, Rock, into the fighting robot Mega Man to serve as Earth's savior. Years of foiled schemes later, both doctors technically die, but not before leaving their greatest projects. X, Light's robot with infinite potential, Zero, Wily's ultimate weapon, and the unfinished Maverick virus. I said technically back there because it looks like Wily infused his essence into the Maverick virus. And for Light, even though he was only seen through holograms in the X series, he knew a lot for someone who was supposed to be dead. The game theory is that he's a cyber elf, and the Archie comics also showed him as a cyber elf in that big fight against him, Zero, Axel, and Omega, so maybe he is, but who knows. Later, in 21XDX, X is discovered by another gifted robot assist, Dr. Kane. He got all hyped from finding this marvel of technology and used him, along with Light's notes, to create Reploids. However, due to negligence, some of them started acting out. These irregulars were given the title Maverick, and thus, the Maverick Hunters were established to protect society from them. Kane's #1 Reploid, Sigma, was selected as the leader, but I guess he wasn't all that great because once Zero woke up, homie whooped his metal ass. After barely winning, the Hunter Commander returned from the fight with the Maverick virus, while Zero was later purified thanks to it. The virus melded with Sigma's systems, thus becoming the Sigma virus. Then he decided humans ain't nothing but hoes and tricks, so screw him. This sparked a war between the Hunters, led by X and Zero, and the Mavericks, dubbed the Maverick Wars. A century plus of violence later, Zero seals himself to have the Maverick virus studied. One scientist used the research to develop the Mother Elf, a cyber elf that could bring Mavericks to normalcy. X then used it to temporarily end the Maverick Wars, but the other scientist who was studying Zero, Dr. Weil, said screw all that, and corrupted the Mother Elf, turning it into the Dark Elf. Then he incited the most catastrophic war in the timeline, the Elf Wars. Using the Dark Elf, he forced Reploids around the world to fight each other. X brought back Zero for the one time, and they managed to end it, but not before it wiped out 60% of the human population and 90% of the Reploid population. And the Elf Wars was only 4 years, fam. 4 years and so many dead. See what Ambition be doing to this place? And just to be clear before anyone comes at me in the comments, I'm not saying Ambition overall is bad. I know there are some people in the timeline who were ambitious and it led to great things, but it's a double-edged sword, you know? There are madmen out there who are just as ambitious as the good guys, sometimes even more, and usually their wild-ass ideals lead to crazy shit happening. Zero resealed himself after the war, and X went on to create Neo Arcadia. a utopia for humans and Reploids to live in peace. Weil was given a regenerative body and banished from the safe haven. His weapon, Omega, was blasted off into outer space. But the Dark Elf was still a problem, so X used his body to seal it within the most secure area in Neo Arcadia. The shock split his soul into 5 cyber elves. The first went off somewhere, while the remaining 4 incorporated themselves into 4 Reploids based on X's DNA, the 4 Guardians. A young human girl named Ciel then created a copy of X to serve as ruler in his stead. But he was freaking crazy. An energy crisis hit the place and he blamed his fellow Reploids for it. He deemed random ones Maverick and began executing them. So with the power of Oh Nah fueling them, many left to form the Resistance. Then 100 years after the Elf Wars, near the end of 22XCX, Ciel joined as the only human and awoke Zero. With him by their side, they fought for the justice of Reploids. Until Weil returned so salty about his banishment that he attempted to control the world. Luckily, though they started as enemies, the 4 Guardians collaborated with Zero to stop him. But then he returned to switch things up with his almighty weapon, Ragnarok. Zero had to thwart his plans once more, but not before the laser destroyed Neo Arcadia, taking out over 20 million people. And unfortunately, that last battle led to the demise of the Red Hero as well. The survivors of that tragedy begin rebuilding, and for some time, things seem chill. There's even a whole baby boom. But out of nowhere, another Maverick uprising occurs. With none of the past heroes left to save them, society just locks them out. The peaceful places that Reploids and humans inhabit are called Inner Peace, while the dangerous wastelands filled with Mavericks are dubbed the Outlands. A group named the Guardians is formed to fight against the Mavericks, and figure out why so many are appearing suddenly. Around the same time, the government power Legion is formed. We'll learn more about them in ZX Advent, but what you need to know now is that they created laws to blur the lines between humans and Reploids. To put them on equal standing, they decree that all humans must come to Legion HQ at a certain age to gain mechanical parts, essentially turning them into cyborgs. They're called humanoids. On the other hand, Reploids must come to get their lifespans decreased. Due to this, the game usually refers to both human-like Reploids, like Zero, and humanoids as human. However, to distinguish them, Reploids are given red arrows on their foreheads. Later, a corporation named Slither Inc. rises into power. They specialize in excavating ancient tech and fighting against Mavericks. At one point, they even solved an energy crisis. According to the track notes for Fragment within the ZX Tunes album, it's highly likely they used the CL system for this. That's that energy system that CL created in the Mega Man Zero series to try and solve their energy crisis. There are also many places in the game that have the same flower design the CL system had. With that, our stage is set. Mega Man ZX takes place in 25XCX, 200 years after the fall of Neo Arcadia. It begins with the protagonist, Vent or Ale, preparing for a job with their caretaker Gyroette. Yo, post-recording, don't you hear? This part might be a mistake. I think his name is actually pronounced Gyroette because that's similar to how it's pronounced in French. And also, it would make a lot more sense later because Gyro, as his nickname, sounds very close to Zero. So yeah, I go throughout the video calling him Gyroette, but I'm pretty sure his name is actually pronounced Gyroette. Just wanted to let y'all know. Alright, back to the stuff. So while researching for this video, I saw a lot of debate over whether or not Ale and Vent could exist in the same universe. And to be honest, I almost let this script go, saying it's impossible for them to coexist. But luckily, the homie Rockman HQ came in clutch with the facts. According to this Capcom blog post, Vent and Ale do coexist. The difference between their stories is merely who Gyro takes on this mission. So huge shout out to Rockman HQ. He was also kind enough to answer a lot of my questions regarding the lore, so without him, this video would have been full of errors. Please show the bro some love. I left the channel in the description below, and it should also appear somewhere as a card on the screen right now. Anyway, both Vent and Ale lost their mothers during a Maverick raid 10 years ago. Afterward, Gyro found them and took them in. Now they work for him and his company, Gyroette Express, a delivery service that is down to go anywhere to get you your goods, even the Outlands. When it comes to their personalities, Vent is like your token shonen protagonist. He's the guy who's bound to give a motivational speech about fighting for justice and all that. Ale, on the other hand, has all the sass. If she catches you being stupid, she will clock you for it, and I love that about her. Now to make things easier, I'm gonna focus on Vent's story, but I'll add in the bits of Ale's story that vary from his. So Vent and Gyro are prepping for their latest gig. As they do so, Vent stares at one of Slither Inc.'s towers with disgust. While Gyro gives us some plot exposition about how much the company has done for them, Vent is like, yeah, but if the security force wasn't trash, my mom would still be here. Gyro understands his anger. but instills the fact that they're good people. And their boss, Serpent, is seen as a hero. They really named the boss of Slither Inc. Serpent. Come on, man. The conversation leads Vent to ask about this job and what they're delivering. Gyro explains that their client is the Guardians, but he should chill with all the questions. Then suddenly, the two are attacked by Mavericks. Vent, along with the package, are separated from Gyro in the process. When the kid gets up, his boss tells him to meet the Guardians at the rendezvous point while he handles shit up here. But as Vent approaches the parcel, he's stopped by a group of Guardians led by the faction's commander, a Reploid girl named Prairie. After confirming that he's their transporter, they're interrupted by another problem, a mechanaloid named Giga Aspis. The Guardian soldiers can't do a thing against it. Vent tries to at least get Prairie to safety, but she refuses to leave her men like this. So he stays by her side even though he has no chance against the mechanaloid. Fortunately for him, the item he and Gyro were entrusted with is no regular package. It's a biometal, a sentient metallic artifact that contains the soul of one of the heroes from 200 years ago. They're kind of like cyber elves from Mega Man Zero, but you can morph with them. This one is known as Model X, as it contains the consciousness of our beloved blue metal hero. The biometal states that it can help Vent. It turns out they're a match. See, biometals don't just work for anyone. When one finds its match, it can grant said user the power of the Reploid it's based on. It does so through the Mega system. Mega stands for Meta Encapsulated Granule Awareness. However, its original acronym, ROX, stands for Rebirth of Crystallized Knowledge. Personally, I think the latter makes way more sense. This merging process is dubbed Mega Merging over here in the States, but in Japan, they rock on instead. Reminds me of jacking in Mega Man Battle Network. Anyway, Vent Mega merges with Model X in this magical girl Power Rangers-esque transformation sequence. I'm sure Akira Kitamura would be proud. As Mega Man Model X, Vent fires a charge shot at the mechanaloid, scaring it away. Now there are two things that I found interesting about this scene. One, even though both Vent and Ale are humanoids, they get the red arrows on their armor, similar to how Reploids have it on their foreheads. Two, doesn't this feel like a callback to how Mega Man Zero started? Think about it. Vent, just like Zero, was thrown into a situation where he had to save a girl in pink. Yet to do that, he needed the help of X, similar to how Zero needed Cyber Elf X to toss him a Z-Saber so he could fight that golem. After the confrontation, Vent low-key freaks out over the fact that Model X can talk to him telepathically. Then he heads out to retire the rest of the Mavericks. And that's dope, you know, I'm glad Vent could switch from courier to hero so quickly. But Ale? She don't play. In her story, she lets the commander know that she expects extra payment for sticking her neck out for them. And you know what? I ain't mad at it. Get your coin, girl. After clearing the area and finishing off Giga Aspis, Vent heads to the rendezvous point to find more Guardians. They confirm that Prairie and them are safe, but Gyro is still absent. Vent declares that he's gotta save him, but the Guardian, Fluve, argues against it, since he holds the extremely valuable Biometal Model X. Vent doesn't care about all that though. He's gonna do it whether they give him the okay or not, so they just let him go. Ale, on the other hand, fully comes at them saying, "Oh, since you got your precious package, you don't even care about the guy who risked his life to deliver it? That's crazy." Oh, Ale, never change. So Vent heads to Area B, fights off some Mavericks, then takes on an airship. But after the fight, a mysterious warrior resembling Zero finishes it off. Turns out this is Gyro. He's the wielder of Biometal Model Z. Vent is hella confused about this because Gyro never said anything about biometals before. So he rightfully asks his boss how this is even possible. And this dude is like, "Oh, I found out about this when taking the job." But tell me how in Ale's story, he admits that he's been a Guardian this whole time. He was tasked with protecting her after the Maverick attack she experienced 10 years ago. They're both chosen ones capable of using the power of biometals. So this man felt bad enough to tell Ale the truth, but he just continued to lie with Vent. That's some diabolical behavior. Anyway, he ends the reveal by asking her to join the Guardians. A pretty bold request for someone who lied to her for 10 years. She feels wary about joining because this is a lot to process. So he leaves, telling her he'll await her answer in Guardian HQ. For Vent, dude just tells him to meet him back at HQ. Homie has absolutely no shame. Before he can meet Gyro though, he must first complete the Guardian trial. After passing it, he's given a familiar plushie that is said to be precious to Prairie. And for those who played Mega Man Zero or watched my video on it, you know that this used to belong to Alouette. This means that it is highly likely that Prairie is an upgraded Alouette with a more mature body. I say highly likely only because there's been no concrete confirmation. However, as we continue with the story, the proof will become apparent. Vent enters the airship that is Guardian HQ and convenes with Prairie and Gyro. She gives him some lore about the Maverick Wars and how the Guardians have been looking into this Maverick resurgence for the longest time. Their investigation led them to a research lab that used to belong to the creator of the Guardians, someone Prairie calls Big Sis. This is where they found Model X. They hire Gyro Express to deliver it to HQ, and the rest is history. After having Model X scanned, Vent hears word that Mavericks are headed to Area D. Prairie goes on to reveal that these Maverick attacks are not random. Thanks to data they procured from a disk Vent found on the Gyro mission, they discovered that these guys are being controlled by a program, meaning they have a leader. She surmises that this mysterious enemy is trying to steal all the biometals. Protagonist Kun is trying to head down there ASAP, especially after hearing that Slithering security force is nowhere to be seen. But, like last time, everyone attempts to stop him because he's holding the precious Model X. However, Vent won't let what happened to him happen to another family, so he goes anyway. Our girl Ale does something similar, but you know she got that fire in her. She clocks them once again. She's like, "So you're just gonna stand by and watch more people die to Mavericks? After knowing my backstory, y'all really gonna let this shit happen again?" Once Vent gets to the area, Gyro appears and agrees to help him out. He pushes onward as our boy clears the area. And if you haven't already noticed, this whole event is a huge callback to Mega Man X. This stage is pretty much Central Highway, the first stage in X1. Along with that, you play as someone who's using X's abilities, while their mentor uses Zero's abilities. It's practically the same setup. But when Vent reaches the end of the stage, he finds his boss unconscious in front of 3 mystery Reploids. The lead one calls him the Blue Mega Man, then somehow forces Gyro to attack him, referencing the fight between Zero and X in X5. Vent manages to hold him off, but he's struck down by the Reploid who caused this. It's Serpent, because of course he's evil. He introduces himself as the Model W Mega Man. I won't reveal what the W stands for yet, but those privy to the Mega Man timeline know that things that start with W usually don't lead to anything good. The 2 other Reploids with Serpent, Prometheus and Pandora, goad Vent until he tries to fire at them, but Prometheus easily deflects it. These guys are Reploid siblings whose names come from 2 of Saturn's moons. Pandora tends to disrupt the F-ring of the planet, while Prometheus acts as the shepherding moon that constrains it. And of course, these moons' names come from the same Pandora and Prometheus from Greek mythology. I just feel like their moon lore fits their relationship more. Yabe went for the Grim Reaper and Witch motifs for their designs. And honestly, I mess with them. They're really cool. I especially like how Prometheus has a beam scythe, like what? After Vent's attempt at retaliation fails, Serpent drops some plot. He says that chosen ones who can control biometals, like them, are called Mega Men. Told you I wasn't joking. They are the ones who will lead society into the new world. However, Vent's weakness proves that some of them don't deserve to be Mega Men. He attacks the kid, separating him from Model X. Then he has Pandora collect the password data out of Gyro and Vent's biometals. With it, they can enact Project Haven. But Serpent proceeds to make the biggest mistake of his career. He leaves Vent and Gyro, saying the Mavericks will get to them. Though both of them are on the brink of death, Gyro manages to sacrifice himself to save Vent by giving him Model Z. With it, Vent double Mega merges with both biometals to become Mega Man Model ZX. This double Mega Merge ability allows Vent to use the power of other biometals. It's reminiscent of X's and classic Mega Man's copy ability. It also reminds me of the Double Soul feature from Mega Man Battle Network. In his new form, Vent tries to gun for Serpent and his cohorts, but they leave before he gets the chance. Then Slithering security conveniently appears to clear up the Mavericks. Vent is told to return to Guardian HQ so he's not confused for an enemy. But before he leaves, he asks Prairie to let him fight alongside the Guardian so he can protect everyone. Back at base, he bounces back pretty quickly, saying he can't let tears hold him back. He needs to stand strong and stop Serpent from carrying out his plans. That's what Gyro would have wanted. Ale, on the other hand, gets more emotional about this. She blames herself for rushing out there and getting Gyro killed. While I appreciate Vent wanting to be strong, I think Ale's reaction is way more human. Afterward, Prairie reveals what Serpent is trying to accomplish. Model W is what's allowing him to control the Mavericks. It's capable of corrupting the minds of Reploids and humanoids. However, he only has a fragment of it. One of the cores is hidden somewhere unknown. She deduces that the guy plans on using the 6 passwords encoded in the other biometals to unlock the core and fully awaken Model W. With that, they have their mission: procure the 4 remaining biometals. They're being held by Serpent's officers dubbed pseudoroids. They each hold 1/2 of a specific biometal model. Though none of them matched the biometals they were given, they were artificially enhanced with their abilities, hence their title. Also, hate to say it, but these pseudoroids are not that interesting to me. They're kind of like monsters of the week that you'd see in like Power Rangers or something. So I don't want to break the flow of the video to go into too much detail on them. Trust me, there's already enough to cover. You'll thank me later. First, he heads to Area F where he finds a data disk with an old report from the Guardians. It reveals that they found Model W long ago, and it was their commander who came up with the name. As they studied it, many suffered from headaches and numbness, so the commander told them to leave for their safety. However, one of them went mad and annihilated the whole team. And you see how they keep this a mystery here? Well, tell me how in Ale Story, they just straight up reveal that Serpent is the one who went crazy. He killed the unit, erased the proof, and ran away with the biometal. Vent does learn this later, but to be honest, I saw no reason in keeping this hidden from him at this point. Shortly after that revelation, Vent proceeds to clear the stage and fight Lorare the Abyssroid. After defeating her, he claims a fragment of Model L, based on Leviathan, one of the 4 Guardians. It joins Vent, excited to fight alongside Model Z. Yup, that's definitely Leviathan in there. Next up is Area E, where he finds a power plant filled with cyber elves. It turns out Slither Inc. is using them as an energy source. Remember that cyber elves are basically the souls of mechanical beings, so this is hella messed up. After clearing the area and defeating the place's boss, Highbolt the Raptoroid, he finds a fragment of Model H based on Harpuya, another one of the 4 Guardians. It asks Vent if he thinks stopping Model W will amount to anything. What's preventing another madman from letting his ambitions cause catastrophe? And you know what? It's not wrong. However, Vent hits it with the whole, "But I've gotta fight for what's right" shonen speech, so Model H joins the crew. Following that, Vent heads to Area H, the same place where he lost his mother 10 years ago. This affects him the moment he gets there, but Prairie encourages him with the reminder that he's not alone. He's got the biometals, Guardians, and even Gyro Spirit on his side. So our boy proceeds to find Purple the Mandroid, the boss of this area, and one of the Mavericks who participated in the attack 10 years ago. Vent takes him down with extreme prejudice, then finds half of Model P based on Phantom of the 4 Guardians. As you'd expect for his character, it expresses resentment for being forced to grant that piece of trash its power. It states that this was a suitable end for a lowlife like him. If you're not X, or related to X in any way, Phantom will always see you as garbage. The next mission takes him to Area G, where he finds Fist Leo the Predatoroid. This guy's annoyed at having to associate with Mavericks. The only reason he's working for Serpent is because the guy promised to give him the power of the gods. However, in Ale Story, he reveals that the Maverick raids from the past were used to find a proper vessel for Model W, an interesting bit of info that will become important later. After defeating Fist Leo, Vent claims half of Model F, based on Fefnir of the 4 Guardians. And out of all the biometals, this one is the most ready. It admits that it's not fully aware of what's going on, but is still itching to get revenge on Serpent for using it. Following the defeat of those pseudoroids, we're treated to a halftime break in the form of an attack on Guardian HQ. Slither Inc. attempts to ambush them, with Prometheus leading the charge. He challenges Vent, stating that this will test to see if he's a worthy sacrifice for Model W. Once the Tyrant loses, he compliments the former Guardian commander on allowing these biometals to fuse. Prairie reacts to this, which catches Prometheus by surprise. He says that that means she's not from this time, thus adding more proof that she's Alouette. In Ale Story, Prometheus states that this fight makes her worthy of being one of them. She's now part of the game. This will also become important later. Back to Vent's story, after the battle, Prometheus dips. Prairie then asks Vent to return. They need to talk. She reveals that she was built hundreds of years ago. And after the first leader of the Guardians, her sis disappeared, she took up the reins as commander. They also basically show CL in this cutscene, which not only proves that she was the first commander of the Guardians, but also adds to the pile of evidence that Prairie is Alouette. Cause let's be real, who else was out here calling CL her sis? In Ale Story though, our girl comes gutting at Prairie, asking who she is and why Gyro was watching over her all those years. Prairie states that she doesn't know much, however she realized that the survivors of the Maverick raids share the ability to mega merge with biometals. That's why Gyro, as the chosen one for Model Z, was ordered to protect her. But to know the whole truth, she's gonna have to get it from Serpent. With that, on to the rest of the bosses. Vent proceeds to Area I to take on Huracan the Wolveroid, who has been kidnapping townspeople and turning them into cyber elves. She goes on to reveal that cyber elves exposed to data on fear is a key to unlocking Model W. The biometal feeds on negative emotions, so Vent retires her sadistic ass before anyone else gets turned, and claims the other half of Model H. When he makes it to the survivors, they talk about how they were forced to watch folks turn into cyber elves one by one. That's a whole new level of cruelty. Also want to add that they're turning Reploids and humanoids into cyber elves. Since humans have mechanical parts now, they can turn into them too. The next mission takes him to Area J, where he defeats Lagoncourt the Gelroid and obtains the second half of Model L. Afterward, he finds a data disk that tells him Serpent is the one who went mad, killed the Guardian unit that found Model W, and erased the research data while leaving with the biometal fragment. Basically the same thing Ale Story told us levels ago. The person who left it asked that the biometal corrupted Serpent and turned him into something else, something more terrifying than a Maverick. They finished the log hoping that they gave their commander enough time to escape. In the Ale timeline, the Guardian added that Serpent was a Maverick raid survivor, which explains why he was the only one truly affected by Model W. His passion for research was fueled by fear, and the biometal took advantage of that. Returning to Vent, the next mission takes him to Area K, where he fights Flammo the Moleroid. He finds the Pseudoroid trying to dig up what he thought was Model W, but after Vent beats him and claims the other half of Model F, the guy wonders if he sensed Model W or something else. This something else is Model O, based on Omega. There's a secret challenge within the title that grants the protagonist this biometal. It transforms them into Mega Man Model OX. Also, the origins of Model O is a complete mystery. It wasn't created by the person who found Model W or CL. It looks like it just willed itself into existence. Vent's next mission takes him to the first Guardian Commander's old research lab. There he takes out Protectos the Goroid, acquires the final half of Model P, and discovers one last data disk. Once he gets back, Prairie explains what they found on it. Model W is actually the remains of Ragnarok, which contains Wile's will. Now you know what the W stands for. 200 years into the future and this man is still a problem. Before she disappeared, CL used her research on the Model W fragment to create the other biometals, infusing them with data from past heroes. In Ale's timeline, she added something interesting. She stated that chosen ones who are capable of using biometals are just as capable of unleashing Model W, so they have the choice to either save the world or end it. I know I'm asking for a lot here, but this makes me think about how cool it'd be if this game got remade to focus on this aspect. What if it was like Infamous and the choices you made, good or bad, actually affected the plot? Yo, they could even differentiate them by having the good story give you heroic biometals like X and Zero, and the bad story give you biometals based on past bosses from the franchise. Capcom, bam. If you need some ideas for a Mega Man revival, I got you. Anyway, Vent uses the passwords from his biometals to enter the dig site where Serpent is trying to unearth one of the Model W cores. And it kinda reminds me of Wile's final form in 04. Serpent's not trying to deal with the kid though, so he sics Pandora on him. After Vent beats her, she states that his efforts are meaningless. The wheel of fate is already turning. There's no point in rebelling, no point in action. Afterward, Prairie informs Vent of strong Maverick signatures coming from the western region of Area D. The readings are so potent, they can't even pinpoint Model W. All Vent's able to do now is take them out. Clearing out the area leads to a confrontation with Pandora and Prometheus. Before they fight, they tell Vent that Serpent is merely a pawn in their larger plan. He's too weak to control Model W. After their boss battle, Vent asks who these guys even are. Pandora states that they are the voice of Model W, while Prometheus adds that everyone in the country is a player on Model W's stage. In Ale's story, they go more in depth about the bigger plan here. Pandora tells her that this is their destiny. All Mega Men must fight till there is only one left. Then Prometheus states that they are all pawns on his board. The psychopath he's talking about will be introduced in the next game. Afterward, Vent heads to Guardian HQ where Prairie gives him the whereabouts of the Model W core. It's in Slytherin's head office. Raiding the head office leads to the usual boss rematches. Then he makes it to Serpent, who's in a room full of cyber elves. There he explains what Project Haven was. He's been using the Maverick attacks to harvest the souls of the scared and turn them into cyber elves. Then he'd feed them to Model W since it loves negative emotions. Slytherin was just a front, so people saw him as a hero. In Ale's story, he starts talking about destiny again, telling her that this is their fate as Mega Men. They must fight until one of them is left standing. However, he adds that Model W is not about destruction. It's about evolution and rebirth. To this, Ale argues that he ain't trying to evolve shit. He's moving out of fear and Model W is using that. Regardless, protagonist Kun watches as the biometal absorbs all the cyber elves. Then Serpent mega merges with it. They fight, and Vent wins the first round. But the false hero still feels confident. See, while Vent was preaching about protecting everyone and all that throughout the story, there was one undeniable emotion that was slowly building. Hate. Hate for Serpent because of the role he played in his mother's and Gyro's death. So Model W yoinks that shit for itself, ending Vent's transformation. As Serpent mega merges to officially end him, the kid's biometals give him that pep talk no jutsu. He stands again, with new resolve, and both he and Ale throw this fire-ass bar at him. I don't care about ruling the world. Serpent, if you want to be the Mega Man destined to rule the world, then I am the Mega Man that is destined to save it. The final battle commences, and Vent comes out on top once again. He calls the guy Maverick, but Serpent argues that Vent's actions are stopping evolution. Maybe he's the one that's Maverick. In Ale's story, he once again instills the fact that Mega Men were designed to destroy each other for control over Model W. Then he reiterates the ominous point Prometheus made earlier. This is all part of his game. but he adds that Ale has this mystery guy's blood running through her veins. After the final battle, Vent is left wondering about the guy's words. Is he the problem? But the cyber elf of Gyro shows up with one last dose of motivation. He tells the kid that stripping away emotions like hatred and sorrow is dumb. Serpent tried doing that and he failed to change the world. So Vent says that he'll hold on to all his memories, even the hard ones. That's what makes him alive. Then before his caretaker leaves, he gives him one last job. Guide the world to a future he believes it deserves. In Ale's story, the statement about her sharing the blood of this mysterious guy people keep mentioning leaves her shook. She worries that this means she's destined to be just like Serpent, or worse. However, Cyber Elf Gyro basically tells her that only she can decide her destiny. Blood won't determine that for her. She leaves with the same conclusion that Vent does. But when she reunites with the Guardians, her final words are a paraphrased version of, "With great power comes great responsibility." Don't know if that was a Spider-Man reference done on purpose, but regardless, this brings ZX to a close. On to ZX Advent. So, why Mega Man ZX Advent? Why not follow suit with the rest of the franchise and go with Mega Man ZX2? Well, Aizu wanted to take the same strategy that he used for ZX and make this as welcoming to newcomers as possible. This didn't only inspire the name, but also the inclusion of two new protagonists, Gray and Ash. After the gauntlet that was ZX's development, Yabe was not ready to do all this over again. But homie pushed through anyway. Once again, Yabe, you the GOAT, for real. To differentiate these protags from the previous ones, he made their hair silver, hence their names, Gray and Ash. Yabe describes Gray as the image of an unleashed puppy. Also, since an older Ale appears in his story, he was purposely made short to show how much he grew. As for his backstory, he's a 14-year-old Reploid boy who suffers from amnesia. Meanwhile, Ash is the image of a hunting ocelot. She was designed to look tough since older Ven appears in her story. She's a 15-year-old humanoid girl who was taken in by the hunters at a young age. They let her know that she was the last survivor of a Maverick attack, but she doesn't know much about her past either. She currently strives to become a legendary hunter whose name is known around the world. Now, no offense to the ZX duo, they look great, but I feel like Yabe truly stepped his game up with these new designs. Vent and Ale felt safe, like they were going for something new, but didn't want to go too far. Gray and Ash feel more distinct. To me, aesthetic-wise, these guys do a much better job at symbolizing a new era within the Mega Man franchise. With that, let's move on to the lore of ZX Advent. And like last time, I'll focus on one character story while adding in bits from the other. This time we're following the female protagonist, Ash. ZX Advent takes place approximately 4 years and 8 months after the Slither Inc. incident. Model W is still active, so Maverick attacks are pretty common. However, during this break, two factions formed to try and take advantage of all the powerful tech that was buried over centuries of war: the Hunters Guild and the Raiders. They pretty much do the same thing, but while the Hunters search for loot to sell, Raiders seek it for their own personal reasons. It also feels like Inti creates one of the Hunters to act like pirates, cause they love calling their treasure booty. And I don't know, maybe it's the way they say it, but it never sounds right.
So now that your appetites have been wet for booty, let's get this show on the road.
It sounds right coming from a pirate, but for them, it sounds like they're genuinely searching for ass. Which reminds me, this game got an English dub, and it exists.
Wet for booty.
I wouldn't say it's as bad as some of the voice acting we got in X4, but it's not really that good either. It's like mid, I guess. Let's just say X8 and Maverick Hunter X are still tied for best English dub in the whole Mega Man franchise. Anyway, this era of excavation becomes known as a tech rush. The title begins with Ash embarking on a mission with her hunter group. Legion tasked them with procuring a biometal from Raiders, so they're chasing them as we speak. Being the gun-ho person that she is, Homegirl rushes to the Raider airship by herself, and fights her way to the place she assumes is holding the treasure, but blocking her is good old Prometheus. He tells them to leave, saying none of them are worthy of the biometal being stored here. Then he seemingly knocks Ash out. She wakes up in a hunter's camp and is told that another group found her, and somehow got the biometal. They're sending it to Legion now. But Ash isn't about to let someone else take credit for her score, so she sprints to catch up with the train that's delivering the biometal. Once there, she meets another hunter named Billy. She drops her whole backstory, which leads to a mysterious voice saying that they're a lot alike. Ash tries to pinpoint where it's coming from, but they're interrupted by a Maverick attack. Prometheus and Pandora lead the raid, and severely wound Ash as she tries to defend the biometal. But as she's knocking on death's door, it exclaims that it can lend her its power. She just needs to scream, Mega Merge. In doing so, she fuses with the biometal, and transforms into Mega Man Model A. Okay, let's nip this in the bud now. I saw a lot of folks saying that this is without a doubt Axel from Mega Man X. Someone found his data and input it into another biometal. Well, I hate to break it to you, but that's not the case. According to that aforementioned interview with Yabe, Biometal Model A is inspired by Axel, but it isn't actually Axel. At the time the game was being developed, X8 was the latest X title, so there was still a lot of mystery surrounding his character. And I get it, Axel's story never finished, so who knows where he could be. As for what the A in Model A stands for, we'll get into that later, don't worry. Also, I just want to add that I love this transformations design. Axel's color scheme mixed with Zero's looks perfect. They also made a reference to that time in X8 when Lumine broke the crystal on Axel's forehead. Notice how Mega Man Model ZX's crest is circular and has a little slit in the middle. Anyway, Pandora and Prometheus are stunned by Ash's transformation. She is one of the chosen meant to participate in their game of destiny. Yeah, they're still recruiting people to join their Mega Man Battle Royale. Afterward, the Reploid siblings leave Ash wondering what the hell they were even talking about. Then she's forced to face the Pseudoroid, Buckfire the Gazelleroid. This one, along with the rest of the Pseudoroids from this game, are different from the ZX bosses because these guys are infused with Model W fragments. He blames Model A for lending its power to the wrong person. After Ash beats him, the Biometal shows off its special ability, A-Trans. Like Axel, it can copy the DNA of enemies and allow her to transform into them. This gives Ash and Gray way more transformations, since it can now morph into Pseudoroids as well as the other Biometal forms featured in the last game. Ash asks if this power is why Model A has so many folks after it, but it has no idea. It doesn't even know why it was created. So the two decide to team up since this mission looks like it's about to get a lot more dangerous. Now let's rewind to the beginning for a sec, because Gray's intro section is significantly different. His story begins with two hunters, Mick and Robin, attempting to break into a room within an old laboratory. There they find Gray sealed within a capsule, but they're attacked by Maverick soon after. When the Reploid boy wakes up, he's immediately met by Pandora. She states that they are Mega Men, but he must be disposed of, because he woke up before the brainwashing could begin. Damn, homegirl was straight up with it. Gray dashes to grab one of the dead hunter's busters, then shoots at Pandora to escape. He ends up in a fight against a mechanaloid which leads to the bridge they're on getting destroyed. He later wakes up in a hunter's camp where he finds Billy. Gray's apprehensive initially, but he thanks the guy for saving him. Afterward, he gets a hunter's license from the trans server, which confuses him because he never asks to join them. Billy tells him that that's the only way to get in here though, so he might as well keep it. But since he's one of them now, Homie straight up asks him if he want to go on a mission. Damn, that's predatory as hell. Homie has no idea who he is and this guy's already trying to recruit him into the Hunters. Gray hasn't even been alive for that long. The mission is to transfer Biometal Model A to Legion HQ, and from here things go the same way as Ash's story. I have to say, I'm a big fan of these alternate intros. My only complaint is that they gave me the impression that their stories were going to diverge greatly. But honestly, Ale and Ven have more dialogue differences than these guys. Don't get me wrong, it makes covering it a lot easier for me, but yeah, shorter, more distinct stories for these guys could have done the game a lot of justice. Back to Ash, after she submits her mission report, she's hit up by the leaders of Legion known as the Sage Trinity, Master Thomas, Master Mikhail, and Master Albert. And if those names sound familiar, it's because they're the same as those of the robotic geniuses from the 21st century, Thomas Light, Mikhail Cossack, and Albert Wiley. They ask Ash to bring Model A to Legion HQ to be studied, but before she can do that, she needs to get to the Raider airship crash site to retrieve parts that can fix the train they were using. For Gray, he's not trying to be the world's greatest hunter like Ash, so he decides to help them in hopes that it will lead to more info about Model A and him. Yo, post-recording Donchi here again. I just now realized that if Gray is going on this mission to procure the parts from the Raider airship crash, that means that in this timeline, in his story, Ash did go on that mission to try and get Model A. I guess after she got knocked out by Prometheus or whatever, she just didn't get to the train on time that was taking the Biometal to Legion HQ. So yeah, that's cool how you could assume that they are both in each other's timelines, just like how it was for Vent and Ale. I like that. That's really cool. Wait, hold up. Post-recording Donchi back again. Technically, this doesn't really mean that Ash is in this timeline because Prometheus did show up on that Raider airship, so it could have just been him who took it down. That would make the most sense. I'm pretty sure he did. I'm pretty sure he's the reason why it crashed, actually. So yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean that Ash showed up here, but hey, I'm choosing to believe that it does, so my point still stands. Anyway, back to the video, actually this time. The first stop on this fetch quest is the Tower of Verdu. There she runs into the Pseudoroid Rosespark the Fluoroid, trying to suck the soul out of a random raider named Jerry. After defeating him and storing his DNA, she proceeds to find Jerry freaking the hell out. He doesn't notice the Model W core in the background. With fear fueling him, it absorbs his soul. Two Mega Men appear after this, Aeolus, the new wielder of Model H, and Ciarnak, the new holder of Model P. Yeah, looks like in between games, the Guardians were robbed of their biometals. Pandora and Prometheus gave them to 4 other chosen ones, who were actually biomatches, and invited them to join the Game of Destiny. Aeolus is just as smug and prideful as Harpuia, but he takes it to a whole new level. He believes ignorance is the root cause of the world's issues, so he must eradicate those he deems foolish, which is pretty much everyone but him. His English name seems to be inspired by the ruler of winds in Homer's Odyssey. His Japanese name, however, Helios, is the Greek god who personified the sun, but in some text, Hyperion was another title for Helios. And guess what? Hyperion is another one of Saturn's moons, just like Prometheus and Pandora. Cyarnak used to be a hunter and assassin, but ever since a mission in which his comrades abandoned him, he's never been the same. Now he's more robotic and much colder to others. His name is also based on one of Saturn's moons. Its name comes from the Inuit goddess of sea creatures and queen of the underworld. Not sure why he joined the Game of Destiny, but I'm assuming it has to do with him losing his trust for everyone. Also, both their biometal transformation sequences and forms look so cool. Aeolus gives more Wind King vibes than Harpuia. No offense, Harpuia, you're still my favorite. And I love how this Model P transformation looks more demonic. It matches Cyarnak's character and the Inuit god he's sorta based on. Anyway, these new Mega Men show up and poor Ash is so confused. She asks them if this Model W is the reason for the Mavericks, but Aeolus just roasts her for having questions. He calls her an unfit Mega Man, says they can take her out at any time, and then they dip with Model W. At least for Gray, they told him to train up for a little bit for what's to come. Ash presses on and confronts the last 2 rival Mega Men, Atlas and Thetis. Atlas is the new chosen one for Model F. She used to be a soldier, but after Mavericks destroyed her home, she became a power is everything kind of character. She joined the Game of Destiny because she believes people need to go through the struggle to evolve. I mean, she's not wrong, but still, turning to Model W for that is kinda crazy. Her name also comes from one of Saturn's moons, which got its title from the Titan Atlas in Greek mythology, who was condemned to hold the heavens for eternity. Lastly, there is Thetis, the new wielder of Model H. He loves the ocean but is sick and tired of how people have been treating it. He joined the Game of Destiny to stop that. Noble cause, but once again, using Model W for that is going a little overboard. Like, did they not read the Vials incident report? If you don't know what that is, it serves as the epilogue of the Zero series. It reviews what happened in the last 2 games and discusses how the survivors moved on after the fall of Neo Arcadia. I bring it up because the report itself is canon to the timeline, and the author said he wrote it because he did not want people to forget about the travesties that occurred. So if we already had someone document how radical actions can lead to catastrophe, why are these guys still choosing the most insane ways to fulfill their ideals? I don't understand. And even if you argue that they're being controlled by Model W, they still accepted an invitation to something called the Game of Destiny from these 2 sus-ass Reploids. Let me ask you a question. Would you join a competition of that name if this Grim Reaper lookalike invited you? Yeah, I didn't think so. Anyway, yeah, Thetis. His Japanese name is Tethys, which is another Saturn moon. It gets its name from the Titan of the same name in Greek mythology. She was the mother of the river gods and oceanids. They hit Ash with the same disdain the last 2 Mega Men showed, and leave her to fight Chronoforce the Z-Fosseroid. After defeating him, he instills the fact that they are all part of his game. Ash correctly guesses that whoever this he is must be pulling the strings. Meanwhile, Gray rages out because they keep mentioning this mysterious person, but never say his name. He just wants to know who the hell this guy is. After extracting the boss's DNA, Ash finally makes it to the crash site. After saving a bunch of raiders, she runs into Atlas, who is in the process of feeding these guys to Model W. By the way, I just want to add that Model A wants no part in saving these guys. It's Ash who chose to save them because she doesn't want to be known as someone who just left them for dead. Model A simply does not want to be alone and wants his new friend to be safe. That's it. Atlas engages with Ash, and our girl comes out on top in the end. Crazy when she was talking all that shit about how Ash turned into a Mega Man by accident. She leaves pissed that the girl spared her life, and thanks to this win, Ash gains the power of Model F. In Gray's story, she states that though he's effective, he's still one of his creations. If he has the determination to fight, then he'll soon find out who he is. Back to Ash, after absorbing the DNA, she's hit with intense pain. She and Model A receive a recording from the mysterious guy everyone keeps talking about. Turns out he left the bits of data within Model A that can only be unlocked through battle. And fun fact, turns out these recordings contain Gundam references. They mention acronyms like AW and CE, which stand for different Gundam timelines, After War and Cosmic Era. You can thank Rockman HQ for that bit of trivia. In this one, he talks about how Model W is the key to evolution. He who holds it wields the power to rule the world, but it will take much time for people to understand his work. When your research has you saying shit like that, red flag, huge red flag. He ends the message by stating that he buried multiple Model Ws around the world. They're waiting for the one who understands his work to receive their power. Afterward, Ash proceeds to use Model F's ability to shoot down a wall of Ceratanium and save the last few raiders. This is a testament to how strong these weapons are, because Ceratanium was the same thing used to create classic Mega Man. I know it's been mad centuries since then and technology advanced, but still. Thanks to this kind gesture, one of the raiders she saved promises to change his ways and work as an honest hunter. As a show of good grace, he's already sent some of his boys to repair the train she needs. With that, she uses it to head to Legion HQ. But before she gets there, she's met by another Maverick attack. Bro, it's crazy how for such a long portion of this game, Ash is just trying to get this biometal to Legion HQ. That's it. That's all she wants. But so many bosses were thrown in her way, and now we're about to get another. Fighting through the area brings her to Ciarnak. Defeating him gives her Model P's abilities, and unlocks another cipher. In this one, the guy behind all this states that he's been looking for a suitable chosen one for Model W. He knows finding a suitable candidate will be impossible, but as one of Legion's Sage Trinity, he knows he can do it. Well, that just knocked down the possible culprits to 3 people. Don't know why you would out yourself in your own recording, but thanks. Funny thing is, we don't even have to wait and guess. After the boss battle, Master Albert reveals that he's the one behind all this. Ash walks in as he's doing his evil monologue. He says that he wanted to stall her longer, but this is still good. She's developing faster than he expected. Ash, confused, asks why this weirdo knows about her. He tells her that he knows everything, as if she was his daughter. Then he dips. For Gray, the vibe is the opposite. He straight up tells the kid he wants to dispose of him sooner, then leaves calling him defective. The disrespect. With Ash, after that craziness, Thomas gives her some more plot. He explains that with their mechanical bodies, they've managed to live for centuries. When Albert joined the Sage Trinity a while back, he was already studying Model W. He then adds that when they looked her up, they found nothing on her. This means Albert most likely erased her records. Thomas doesn't know why, but he does know that Albert thinks she's special. Meanwhile, when Gray gets this news, my boy is pissed. He came all this way only to find out there is nothing on him. However, Thomas says that Albert sped up his plans once Gray hit the scene, so that must mean something. But neither of them get the chance to talk about this more, because Mikhail informs him of multiple Maverick attacks happening around the world. The first area Ash heads to brings her to Thetis. He takes her underwater to show her a Model W core, thus revealing that he sparked this attack to feed the thing. So Ash pulls an ale and clocks his ass for being a hypocrite. He talked all that crap about saving the environment, yet he's out here acting like a maverick. But using his own twisted logic, Thetis argues that she's the maverick. I mean, he and the other Mega Men were all planning to have this game of destiny by themselves. She just came out of nowhere. Doesn't that make her maverick? No, Thetis, no it doesn't. After defeating him, Ash absorbs left back DNA and unlocks another cipher. This one explains how Albert created 2 sibling Reploids to help him find the proper vessel for Model W. He infused each of them with the biometal's power and gave them one mission: find the strongest Mega Man. To do this, they distributed fragments of Model W to other Chosen and basically entered them in a battle royale. The winner becomes the Mega Man King and wielder of Model W. This is the game of destiny. The recording leaves Ash wondering who she is again. Albert thinks she's special, yet other Mega Man said she transformed accidentally. Gray, on the other hand, thinks about his reason for fighting. Everyone seems to be part of this game of destiny for some special reason, yet he's only fighting to discover his past. Is that right? I'll answer your question right now, Gray. Yes, the hell it is. Let's not forget that Ciarnak has not given a concrete reason as to why he's doing this. Like, yeah, he got betrayed, but what is he gonna do, rewrite the world so betrayal doesn't exist? Actually, hold up, that's kinda smart. The next stop is the Floating Ruins. Ash battles her way to find Win Vegeta and beats him, thus collecting the DNA of Model H, and another hidden record within Model A. And this one has got to be the weirdest. So, do you guys remember how they mentioned in ZX that Maverick raid survivors are capable of using biometals? And do you guys also remember the whole thing about Legion HQ giving humans mechanical parts and nerfing Reploid lifespans? Well, Albert used the Maverick raids to judge who was going to be his chosen few. Then, when those few came to Legion HQ for their surgeries, this freaky ass dude infused them with his DNA. His DNA! Yup, this crazy narcissistic fuck was just throwing his blood into people. That's why people kept saying his blood is flowing through your veins, because it actually is. Of course, this leaves Ash all kinds of shook, but Model A, oddly enough, tells her not to think about it too much. It's almost like it knows more than it's letting on. Regardless, they head to the scrapyard next, where they come across Volturon the Condoroid. After defeating him, she's met by Pandora and a Model W. She hits her with the usual cryptic babble, saying her destiny was already set from jump and blah blah blah. Before she leaves with the biometal, she tells our girl that soon she'll learn everything and be driven to despair. For Gray, their reunion is a bit more morbid. She instead asks if he hears the cries of the world. He says he does and always finds her at the center of it, but she catches him off guard, stating that these screams are being caused by him and Albert. Then she leaves him with the same despair bar she left Ash with. I know these kids are probably steaming at this point. Most of their enemies have hit them with cryptic shit or have roasted them for not knowing said cryptic shit. They can't catch a break. The next mission takes Ash to a control center. As she traverses the place, she runs into Prometheus. He says they're more alike than she thinks, and leaves her with the promise of cutting her down later. After defeating this area's boss, Queen Bee the Hymenopteroid, Thomas contacts her with an urgent message. Albert is collecting Model Ws from around the world, and there seems to be activity from the biometal near the Hunter's camp. She needs to head there now. While clearing this area, she runs into a familiar face, Vent. He's now 18 and my god did his hair grow. I've been growing my hair for a little over 10 years now. It's twisted up right now for the video, but even when it's all out, I still can't compete with this hang time. Also, quick development note. The 4-year, 8-month time skip was purposely chosen so that Ale and Vent would be 18. The team wanted them to be old enough to feel like older siblings, but young enough to not be seen as adults. Anyway, Ash assumes Vent is an enemy stand, but he's just searching for the biometals that were stolen. They fight, and somehow Ash wins. I blame this victory on plot. No way Ash or Gray beat people with 4+ years of Mega Man experience. After defeating him, the final cipher is unlocked. This one reveals the ultimate goal of Albert's plan. He wishes to use negative emotions to awaken and combine all the Model Ws around the world into one all-powerful biometal, Ouroboros. He who holds the power of this weapon will evolve beyond the mere fusion of human and machine. It is his goal to use it to become the ultimate Mega Man. So let me get this straight, Albert. You've been alive for centuries, so you had to be there when Neo Arcadia fell. Hell, you could be one of the survivors. Either way, you had a clear picture of how awful Ragnarok was. You saw the damage it caused. Yet you still decide to research a piece of it and have the gall to call it the key to evolution? Are you insane? Thinking about it now though, homie was probably screwed the moment he interacted with it. Since it corrupts things around it, he probably unknowingly fell victim to its powers. So if you want to be technical, the real villain here is Weil. After that recording, Vent and Ash end up forming a truce, then defeat a Mechanaloid and a Model W core. Following that, she lets him know everything she found out through the data recordings. Then he leaves her saying that next time, they'll take on this game of destiny together. With that, she continues her quest with newfound resolve. Sadly though, Thomas doesn't have any leads for her. For now, he sends her to search through areas she hasn't visited for more clues. In the biolab, she faces Bifrost the Crocoroid, guardian of the sleeping soldiers. He reveals that this is the army that will rise when the new world comes and eliminate everyone from the old world. In the Waterfall ruins, she runs into Argoyle and Ugoyle the Schizoids, while in search of data that Legion found on her. After defeating them, she finds Prometheus and Pandora, who just destroyed the computer she was looking for. They tell her that they're in endgame mode now. They've kept her alive this whole time on purpose, but they can't have her snooping around. Soon, as long as things go as planned, Albert and the Game of Destiny will reach their end. This whole time, she thought they were on Albert's side, so she questions them about this. But Prometheus doesn't want to spoil things yet. He'll tell her later, maybe while she's dying. Luckily, she still finds some data after the two leave. Her last stop is the same lab that Gray woke up in at the beginning of this story. The first thing she comments on is a destroyed bridge. Notice that it's the same bridge that broke when Gray fought that Mechanaloid. So in Ash's story, Gray might be off somewhere trying to figure out who he is, but with no Model A to help him. Sad. As she continues, she finds two capsules labeled DAN-001, Prometheus, and DAN-002, Pandora. Thomas correctly guesses that these are the Reploid siblings Albert built. The capsules also show that they have to constantly return for maintenance, so these things are like shackles for them. But the game doesn't fully go into how messed up this all is. See, through audio dramas within the ZX Gigamix album, we learn a bit more about these guys. Apparently they weren't always like this. They used to be normal Reploid siblings. They even tried to escape Albert's clutches because Homeboy's plan was insane, but he forced them back, changed them forever by infusing them with Model W fragments, and user-required maintenance cycles as a way to keep them under his thumb. That should give you a better idea of why these guys hate Albert. And you know what? This part really makes me wish Inti Creates put moments like these in their games. Because unless you're out here listening to game soundtracks and stuff, you would have no idea this background even existed. So without it, Prometheus and Pandora kind of feel like shallow bosses who are only here to bolster the plot. If this is like a flashback somewhere within the stage, it would have added some much needed depth for them. Anyway, Ash continues through the lab until she runs into this place's boss, Headshock the Renesoroid. After defeating her, they find one last capsule labeled DAN000, prototype, along with more data. After questioning who this capsule could have been for, she sends the extra data to Thomas. He extracts an initialization key meant to help Ash get straight to Albert's hideout. She heads over there and fights through the area, but is stopped by a horrific sight. Countless Model Ws. At the end of the hall stands Albert, but out of nowhere, Prometheus and Pandora appear, thanking Ash for leading them here. Then Prometheus kills the guy. He tells Ash that they were using her this whole time. They've been using all the Mega Men for their revenge. They knew that starting this Mega Man Battle Royale would attract Albert. Once he revealed himself, they just waited for Ash to lead them right to him. Now they will hasten the destiny of destruction by destroying all that Albert made. They proceed to jump Ash and she barely gets the W. She declares that this fighting is pointless, but Prometheus and Pandora continue to berate Albert for what he's done. Then suddenly, the two fall unconscious. A new guy appears, stating that their years of hate and suffering were the final pieces Model W needed. Funny how the ZX protagonists were fooled into letting their negative emotions power Model W, and now these two guys just fell for the same thing. The new guy reveals himself to be the true Master Albert, DAN000. The body Prometheus destroyed was merely a decoy used to join the Sage Trinity centuries ago. The room then starts shaking, and Ash is forced to leave even though she at least wants to save Pandora and Prometheus. Back at the Hunter's camp, they watch as Albert's plan comes to fruition, and Ouroboros rises. Everyone panics, because the Mavericks destroyed their airships, so they have no way of getting to it. Fortunately for them, Vent shows up with the cavalry, the Guardians. Using their airship, Ash leads Vent and a small group of hunters onto the giant biometal. Once our girl confronts Albert, he transforms into all the pseudoroids she faced. She questions how he's able to use A-Trans, but he tells her that that's not the true extent of his ability. The spirit of everything Model W8 lives inside him. It grants him the power to control all life. God damn, Model W's busted. Why is Wiles' will so strong? You know what? Getting banished from your home for centuries might do that to someone. He tells her to go beat the boss rush, then he'll do the last reveal. After taking all of them down, she's stopped by the rival Mega Men. Ash argues that they are being used, so there's absolutely no point in fighting. But Aeolus is like, girl, shut up. That just means whoever beats Albert is king. So now, we're gonna jump your ass. You know, for someone who hates ignorance, you're being mighty ignorant. Luckily, Vent pulls up to hold them off. He needs to procure the stolen biometals after all. With that, Ash reconvenes with Albert, and he finally tells her the whole truth. She's a descendant of his original family. They're blood related. She never got infused with his DNA because she never had to. As for Model A, it's his backup system containing his plan. That explains why he completely outed himself in those recordings. The A stands for Albert, and the biometal rightfully states that it hates that name. I feel you, bro. I wish you were Model Axel too. As for Gray, Albert created him in his image to be like his son. He was essentially a backup for him just in case his plans went south. Model A was meant to tell him what to do. Now, both these reveals are insane, but I feel like Gray Zone is a lot more depressing. Homie was basically just a backup plan. That's fucked. Albert then merges with his throne to transform into his first form, but Ash beats it. He comments on how he feels the bitterness and sadness of those who were absorbed by Model W. He calls it the world's consciousness, and declares that it desires destruction. Ash knows he's losing it, but right now, he truly believes he's a god. He takes on his final form and commences the last battle. After a difficult fight, Ash wins once again. Before he and the biometal fall, she tells him that he's not a god. He tried to save the world by ending it. He tried to end her story. No one ends her story. Albert replies that she surpassed him. She can have her peace and rot in it. For Gray, he tells his creator that he may be defective, but he could even change the destiny of a kid like him. So what does that say about you, Albert? After the big bad's death, we catch Vent stuck in battle against the other Mega Men. So Model Z separates from him and tells him to leave. Though Vent argues, it tells his friend that it won't meet its maker just yet. After Vent dips, Model Z pulls a move that incapacitates the Mega Men. Bro, where was this when you guys were fighting? Then I guess he goes back on his promise? Cause he drops the ultimate death flag by telling Vent to take care of Ash. After the fall of Ouroboros, our two heroes meet up to talk about their future plans. He's going to continue traveling with the Guardians. She wants to continue her adventures with the Hunters, and Model A is down to join her cause it's free now. Meanwhile, Gray tells Ale that he plans on going on a journey of self-discovery. Then the title comes to a close. But wait, we have a secret ending. We find Thomas and Mikhail talking about everything that went down. But Thomas is oddly being more open-minded about everything. Then he asks an ominous question.
give humans robotic bodies and give Reploids mortality. So where do you think the human bodies for the Reploids are? What do you think happened to the original Reploid data from before we gave them mortality?
Yup, Thomas is playing with the idea of resetting the world and bringing about new life. Also, the other rival Mega Men show up here, so I guess Model Z is gone or lost the fight against them? I don't know, but this ending is even more sad now because of that. Apparently this was meant to help the transition into Legends, but we'll get to that in that video. For now, this is the end of the Mega Man ZX saga. I do want to add though that there was a plan for a third game. According to a live stream hosted by Inti Creates, its title was supposed to be Mega Man ZXC. What C meant was never confirmed, but many fans thought it stood for CL. Yabe had multiple story details planned out for it, but it never came to fruition. The information on it is limited though, because Suda didn't think it was right for them to talk about it. But yeah, lore, finito. You see why ZX needed its own video. Do you understand why? I told you already in the Zero video, but you see how I can't be trusted? This video is not even fully, like, I'm just now recording all this stuff, so I once again don't know how long it is, but it definitely beat an hour. I'm sure it beat an hour. That's crazy. That's so crazy. It's 2 games. It's 2 games, bro. But with that being said, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Only if you enjoyed the video. It helps the channel out a lot. If you want to see more from me, hit that bell as well. The next video is going to end this section of the timeline, this universe. We're going to go into Legends. Finally going to be done, and then I'm going to take a much needed break and go into other video game stories. I think I might cover some lead characters. Yeah, I might cover some lead characters. Might start with Echo and then go into my remake of the Sonic lore and all that. But we'll see. We'll see. I'll keep you guys updated. Also, huge shout out to my guildmates. Love you guys so much. Folks, if you want to join the guild, head to my website. You can, just like Patreon, you could pledge a certain amount a month and gain dope perks like my stream archive, discount on merch, early video releases, behind the scenes stuff, all that good stuff. And while you're on the website, check out my merch, the Kaizen collection, bro. It's out. It's lit. I'm so proud of it. I'm so happy we finally have these designs out. Check them out. I like them a lot. I rock this deadass every day, to be real with you. But yeah, check it out. Let me know how you feel about it. And yeah, with that being said, I will see you guys next time. Probably, I might do a stream before the year ends, but if I don't see you before the year ends, Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, be easy, stay lit, you look good, and don't forget to smile today. Peace out, y'all.